So I finally watched the Avatar Last Airbender live action season 2 teaser trailer. And to be honest with you guys, I did not care. I did not care about hearing or the announcement that there was gonna be like the season 2 was out. Like when I seen it, I follow them on Instagram, Netflix or whatever. So when they announced that, oh, the trailer's out, like I just did not care. And it took me until today, which is 2 days later, to actually go back and watch the full trailer. I started it before and it just kind of like lost interest and watched something else, because this past like week we've gotten like so many different trailers for different things, and that just wasn't one of the things that piqued my interest, which is crazy. I want to clarify, this is not a hate video. This is not me hating or trying to be negative or anything like that. I have praised this series so much as far as like just the effort and the energy that's gone into it. I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. And so it's not to be a hater on the actors, the cast, the writers, none of that. It's nothing to be like, anything like that. But, since the beginning, since this whole thing was just in discussion that there's going to be a live action, which was years ago, when it was just a rumor that was going around, I was covering that with my brother on a different channel. And since then, I've been, reacting to it. I reacted to the first season, the teaser trailer. Like, I've been invested, you know what I'm saying? And so for me to say that I don't care about the new season coming out, I think is a pretty big deal for me, especially being a Avatar fan to the core. I've watched the original series, like so many times I've lost count. I made a video when the first season came out of my thoughts and feelings, just because I didn't really understand how I didn't understand in the time like how I felt about the first season. And so I kind of put all my thoughts out and organized a video that I put out. It was like a little over, it was like an hour and a half long video of me just kind of talking about like my thoughts on it, the things I liked, the things I didn't like, what I would have liked to see. And so you can check out that video if you want to after this video. But needless to say, I have some things that I would like to say regarding this upcoming season and why, to me, it feels like there's not really a lot of hype around it. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Now, to get started, the effort and the visuals and everything else that went into the show, there was so much heart, the characters, the fact that they actually made sure that they included, indigenous representation, Asian representation, the correct way to I guess show these cultures the correct way. The way they cast it was very intentional. The way that they, filmed and the way they took their time with the series was very intentional, very mindful. And they wanted to put something together that the fans would love, as well as would respect the culture itself and the original series. And so I would give them props for that, for the amount of love and energy that they put into it. The visuals were amazing. That's one thing about the show that I can say, is that it really scratches that itch of wanting to see what the elements will look like in real life. And I feel like that's the closest we will probably get with the technology that we have of like what bending will look like. And it looks spectacular. It's absolutely immersive in my opinion, and I absolutely love that about the show. And I love the dynamic with the characters as well, as far as like them actually being friends in real life, the dynamic and stuff like that they have. And it's just like, there's a lot of love behind the scenes itself. And these are things that I've been praising for a long time within the series, of the cast and even the people behind the screen that are also Asian or indigenous that are working on the show itself, and how they are actually mindful of that, not only having a representation in front of the screen, but behind the screen as well. And like I said, everything, they seemed like they wanted to put a lot of energy and effort. They want to just put something out there, which is why it took so long for us to even get the show in the first place. It's because they're trying to be careful, make sure they got it right. And before I get into the problems and disappointments that I've experienced watching this live action show, I want to just say that I do not think that this adaptation needs to be exact same as the original series. I think that what I was excited about the most about this show is being able to see a different kind of perspective on the characters and of the plot and of everything in general. And so that's what excited me the most. So I want to just clarify that before I say anything else. My main issue is the lack of character connection because of the rushed storytelling. And I feel like what made the original series so compelling is because of the emotional aspects, the character growth, the character connections with each other. But this new adaptation just feels like it kind of just prioritizes how things look, It's not necessarily about the depth of the characters and their connection to each other. Like, one of my things I was sad is just the fact that even within the Avatar gang so far, there doesn't seem to be like a deep connection with all of them. It just seems like they're just kind of thrown together and they're just kind of working together, but it doesn't feel like how like the deep connection and care that like it had before, as far as like a deep friendship and understanding and like this sense of like family. It doesn't feel like that. And not only me, but some other fans have noticed that some of their personalities were either flattened or like altered in a way that makes them less relatable. And I think for me, one of the big ones was Suki. And I know this is probably like crazy because she's not one of the main characters, but Suki for me was so amazing because she was a strong character, very independent. She was very much like, oh, she was a warrior, something that Sokka aspired to be. And like as her as a character, you respected her. In this adaptation, version of her, she's very much not that. Like she's more so definitely about like, she's that trope of like that girl that's like everything about her just kind of surrounding a guy, right? Just the way that she interacts with Sokka is just weird. I didn't like that dynamic between them, because I felt like the dynamic of their relationship was built upon them respecting each other. Like it just kind of like foundation of like, at first it was just kind of like this weird kind of dynamic, but it grew on respect for each other. It wasn't about her having googly eyes for him and being attracted to him. It wasn't like that. And I think that's the thing that made it different, is that it wasn't about him. It was about her standing on who she is as a warrior, fighting for something, being exactly what it is that Sokka wanted to be. And then it kind of goes into Sokka as him being more of taking away that element of character growth that was very important. I understand they probably wanted to pivot from that, but I feel like it was so important to everything that was connected to him, to his development in general over time. It wasn't just there to be there. It was there to show him growing as a person in many different ways. And that started with Suki. Suki was like the first person that grounded him in a sense of like expansion, as far as like even learning how to respect women and stuff like that, seeing women in a different light, because in his culture it was more of men are the warriors, women are, you're just supposed to do this and that. So that was one thing I didn't like. I think for Sokka they tried to focus more on the trauma, which is understandable. I think that was a cool element, but I think that matched with maybe like a sense of ignorance in a sense to like Suki and like women and stuff like that, and him having to go through like that different mind shift, because it was more of like not traditional, but a cultural thing than anything else. It had nothing to do with necessarily the women themselves. I just think it was a mindset that he grew up with, and I feel like having that element on top of exploring the trauma that he experienced, wanting to earn his dad's respect and stuff like that, would have been kind of cool to see all together. You know what I mean? Instead, he kind of had him as this more like grown up, mature, when that wasn't really what he was in the beginning. And so it's kind of like they're starting him off already kind of being, his development already kind of being matured, if that makes sense. And then Katara, she's like strong-willed, but also like compassionate and soft, but also she doesn't play about the people that she cares about. She doesn't play about the things that she believes in, other people, what's right? But in the adaptation, you don't really get that from her. I see a lot more like she's dulled a lot in the sense of how Suki is dulled. And I feel like those aspects of like when you see like people want to talk about wanting to see women in media and like want to see women in movies, I would say a great example, like what I would want to see as a woman, is seeing Suki, is seeing Katara in the original series, seeing that like you can be whatever, like you can be a strong woman. And you know what I mean, like they did it in a way that didn't feel like, it felt real, it felt natural, it felt I could relate to that. That's what I aspire to be like. But in the adaptations, like they took that out, and it just feels like, it just doesn't feel like them. It doesn't have that depth that we had from the original series. And then there's some people that say that Aang seems like he's more, like his humor is more forced. He seems a little bit more naive. Then, originally like he was more charming, but now it just seems like it's kind of like a forced thing. That's kind of how I felt too. Especially with the Zuko and Aang scene, I think that was also a very disappointing scene for me, because it's supposed to demonstrate so much. And of course, like in that scene, with Aang and with Zuko, the way that they pulled it off just wasn't for me. It just didn't hit the way I thought it should hit. But I have to kind of agree with that, with fans saying that he just came off like kind of forced. I feel like a lot of the dynamic within that live adaptation did feel forced. The humor did feel forced. All of it just kind of felt kind of off. And then also the events that were originally like gradual and they felt earned over like multiple episodes. Like they happened immediately in the show, in the the adaptation, I'm sorry. They happened like so fast in the adaptation. I remember they had Boomy in the episode. They introduced the Mechanist. They introduced so many characters in one episode, and that's honestly very disappointing for me. I think that was like one of the things I hated the most about when it came to that part of like the pacing, is just that like throwing in these important characters, because the Mechanist was a huge part in Sokka's development as well, and so rushing past that just kind of felt weird. I think it's just the fact that it's just all in one episode. It's just kind of like, oh, just gonna toss these people in there or whatever. It's like cool to see them, right? To see the freedom fighters, to see the Mechanist and his people, to see Boomy, and that kind of it was cool. But the significance of these moments were taken away because of how fast it happened. And even when you take into account Katara and Aang's like dynamic, it feels like it's compressed, and the key moments that should carry like weight or tension, they feel rushed or like just completely glossed over. A lot of fans have pointed out that the bending and the training and the growth arcs of secondary characters like Sokka, learning tactics, or Zuko's like inner conflict in the original, it felt shortened or skipped entirely in the adaptation. And that's what I mean. And unfortunately, because of that, I honestly feel like it makes it hard for me to care about these characters. It makes it hard for me to connect to these adaptation characters. And when I want to connect to these different versions of these characters, to these different perception of these characters. But it's hard for me to do that when everything is so rushed. The important parts are glossed over. And even if they wanted to kind of adjust certain moments, I feel like without them completely, or not even completely, but in the way that they're done, it just doesn't have any significance to where I actually care about these adaptation version of these characters. And also the con to throwing in multiple characters at once, the con to that is that it diminishes their journey overall. So in the original series, when you're introduced to a character, it was introduced with intention. It was introduced to progress the story, and it helped us to emotionally invest because we got to see things happening over time, and everything was intentional. Meeting the freedom fighters was important. It was important because it kind of gave you a different perspective, whereas you want justice, but there's a certain way that you have to go about it. You can't just sacrifice everybody, or you have to have some type of boundary. You have to have some type of morality. You know what I mean? You can't make yourself like the enemy themselves. And so meeting the freedom fighters was very important for the Avatar game. Meeting the Mechanist, different things like that were very important for many different reasons. It wasn't just to have them there. They all served a purpose in that point in time in the plot, which is why they're so important, which is why we care about them. You know what I mean? Like, we care about these different people, these different groups, these different characters. So in a live action, it just comes across, it feels like it's crowding, like it's just so many things going on at once. Too many characters appearing too quickly, leaving little room to care about them and understand them, especially the adaptations versions of these characters. And so example of this is like in one episode or scene, a new side character might appear, but we got no backstory or emotional context, and fans call this a checklist approach. Characters exist to fulfill plot points rather than live as full realized people. And I felt that, and that's what I felt when they introduced the Mechanist, and when they introduced the freedom fighters, and pretty much all these other people, like even May and Ty Lee entering the chat in the show, it was just kind of like, okay, like there really wasn't like that interesting to me. And the original Avatar's like emotional depth is just not there. And a lot of fans and a lot of critics have called out the lack of subtlety in emotional beats. So like in moments of like grief or moments of joy or bonding feel muted or superficial. That's why I was saying earlier when it felt kind of forced. Some of these moments feel kind of forced between the characters. I think the original series did a good job of giving us like pauses, so we could feel the emotional weight of a lot of these moments that made us feel connected, and it made the stakes feel more personal, more real. So I think not only me but other people are noticing the disconnect between the action spectacle, like how things look, and the human story, which made the original series so timeless. This adaptation doesn't really have that same feeling of timelessness. I watched the first season of that show and never looked back. I barely made it past that first season, actually, just because it was so hard for me to connect to it. And not connect to it based off of the original series, but connect to this adaptation, to that version of the show. That show alone, not taking into account the original series, just watching that show alone really didn't make me care about it. And that has a lot to do with the pacing and not having those emotional, like, you know, like having those moments of like growth and things that connect us to the characters and make us care about the characters. If it wasn't for the fact that we had the original series, I don't really know, like, I don't think I would have liked the show anyways. There's some other things that people have talked about, like certain inconsistencies, and these are from the fans, not necessarily for me. I know the number one thing for me would definitely be the clothes, like the costumes. Like, they look like costumes, and they shouldn't look like costumes. In a world like Avatar, The Last Airbender, with all that going on, why are their clothes so clean, so crisp? I just feel like that's another thing that makes you feel so disconnected from the world itself. It's not as immersive because it just looks too clean. Like, it needs to be more like, I was thinking a little bit more gritty, a little bit more like realistic to the world that they're living in. They're traveling. How the heck are their clothes so pristine and clean? And so there's like little things like that that I personally noticed that just was like, you know, I didn't really enjoy that. But some people were talking about some props, costumes, and bending effects that are visually stunning, but lore inconsistencies appear like, you know, bending techniques, spiritual elements, or timeline errors. As far as the tone, the balance of like humor and drama sometimes feels off, which I agree. It was just, I feel like they had a hard time kind of trying to merge them, which is understandable. Like, taking something like an animation and trying to make it into a live action is very hard, because in a cartoon or animation, you can easily have certain expressions that kind of says things without having to actually say them, and kind of expression, you know, different things, like different tones. Like, it's easy to express things because of that different effects that you can use in animation, whereas in live action it can be a little bit tougher, which I feel like that's for any type of like action, live action like action movie or something. Like, trying to fit in that humor can be a tricky thing in general. So in the humorous moments where it should feel lighthearted or reflective, it can feel like forced or just like out of place. I felt that a lot, especially with Sokka's humor. Like, I know he's supposed to be funny, but it's just kind of like, don't really know if I like that. I don't really know. It just didn't come across like, you know, certain moments that were supposed to be funny were just kind of like, okay, you know. I give them they try, you know what I mean? They're trying. But for me, it was a lot of like, it just kind of missed for me in a lot of senses. There are also some people saying that there are a lot of dialogue issues or problems, like fans have called out stilted or awkward dialogue that doesn't reflect how the characters would normally speak, which furthers, like, it distances the viewers even more, just because it doesn't feel like the original characters, which I can kind of agree with. Even though I wouldn't say that's like a big thing for me, like, it wasn't like that terrible for me. I just feel like it was more so trying to fit in the humor that was kind of like awkward at times. The dialogue could definitely feel better, be better, and I think the way that it comes off, it just doesn't feel like they're actually like friends. Like friends, sure, but like it feels forced. Like, they want you to believe that these people are like friends or whatever, but it just doesn't give that type of, it doesn't match that energy, if that makes sense. Which sucks, because the cast, they're really tight. Like, they hang out with each other all the time outside of like just the show. Like, they're actually like really good friends with each other. So it's sad that we don't really get to see that or feel that like be like on screen. I personally don't anyways. But that's just my opinion. And then also another thing that I had mentioned in my other video is the little culture, spiritual, or emotional nuances that fans loved in the original. Like, you know, Katara connecting to the water spirits, or Sokka's strategic growth, and or minimizing or like skipping it entirely, where I feel like these elements are so important to like giving context to the world itself, to the deeper lore, and not only that, but just the characters and their growth. I think another one too, like I said before, is Sokka's strategic growth. That was very important. Like, he had to grow over time, and that's why you're able to love and respect Sokka, is because you see how he started and where he ended up. It was a journey for him, and it wasn't an easy journey for any of the characters. You know, Katara connected to the, you know, water spirit, like stuff like that. It was important, and I feel like skipping over that is so harmful to the story. Other people might feel the same as me. I'm not really too sure, but I did notice today when I checked like the view, like I went to go to the trailer again just to kind of look over it. Like I said, today was the first day I actually went and watched the full like trailer, and I was shocked to see that it only had like a little over 2.2 million views at that time, and it was already like, today is like 2 days since it's been out. And I remember when the first season came out, like the views were skyrocketing on the trailer. When that trailer dropped, it was crazy. I remember I had to like rush to hurry up and react to it just because I had seen so many people already like, watching it and engaging with it. But this time the viewership is so low, and that's honestly sad to see because I know how much energy and effort they put into the series and how much, love was poured into it. So during this part, I do want to say that I think I came off a little bit too like confident in that statement. I don't want to come off as if I'm assuming too much what other people are feeling as far as like the other fans. I honestly think a lot of fans are not necessarily upset about the live action. I think a lot of people love the live action. I think that people are aware of the flaws, and I think I've noticed that people seem to be just okay with this live action. Like there's no like anger or strong dislike for the show. I definitely don't strongly dislike it, but I do notice that a lot of people do talk about the disconnect that they feel, which is also the disconnect that I feel. But as far as actually people's interaction in viewing the trailer itself for season 2, even though the number, I feel like it's a pretty good number. Like it's not bad. I don't want it to come off as if I'm saying like, oh, they failed or like there's some type of failure there, because I have seen on TikTok as well that the trailer's on there too. They don't have to go to YouTube to watch that trailer. They can watch it on TikTok or on Instagram. And so from TikTok, I saw that there's a lot of great interaction and fans are ready to see season 2. So I'm not saying that it's not there, the excitement isn't there, but I am noticing that some people are not like, I don't feel like it was something that people were just like waiting for. But then again, that's just my perception. But I do question whether or not people actually really care like that. I think that people enjoy watching the show itself because it is something that we've been waiting for. I am personally very, very grateful for the live action. I feel like, as a fan, like being able to see them, like they did it justice in the sense of being able to see like how much thought and love and care was put into it, and being able to see our favorite moments happening like live action. I don't want to say that views matter, because we see these people out here, these grifters that will use these things to like talk crap, and that's not where I'm coming from. I'm just saying I think it kind of reflects the lack of engagement, or that there's not really a huge excitement to see this new season. I don't know if maybe there's other things that people are more excited about to see or what, but it kind of just gives me the vibe that people just aren't as excited, me included. I didn't really care for the live action. I know a lot of people who just say that, oh, the live action was okay. Like the show, it's just kind of like people who just aren't like crazy about it, or like when it drops, I'm sure people will watch it, but the actual hype around like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see it, doesn't really seem to be there. But it goes to show that, not only are the fans like kind of feeling some type of way about this live action adaptation, but even like, I guess you could say fans that were more optimistic about the show even have the same complaints about like the pacing, the character work, like being underwhelming and stuff like that. It wasn't just like, even the most open-minded fans were also disappointed, saying the same things about the pacing and the character stuff. So obviously this seems to be a common thing with people who have watched the show. I think that if the studio keeps going in the direction that they're going, it's really going to erode the trust and excitement for the show, which is what we're already seeing, especially when it comes to future like seasons. Like I think there's only going to be like 3 seasons, but I don't want to jump too ahead on that. But for the longtime fans who get deeply excited and they care about the emotional and narrative integrity of the show, it can be very hard to kind of want to move forward in something that really doesn't seem like there's much effort put into the things that matter, besides just seeing how cool it looks. But to be fair, there are some fans that are curious to see how action sequences, effects, and new story choices play out. I'm one of those people that's trying to, like, this like maybe like 5%, trying to keep open-minded and hopefully see that there's going to be more that happens within the series that makes it all make sense. But I think that the overall like sentiment is like muted compared to the anticipation for the original series. There are some theories as to why things might feel so rushed and different than the original series. The studio, I know that, they're trying to fit the story into fewer seasons and episodes, which can be hard when the original series had 3 seasons and had 20 plus episodes in each like season, right? It's a lot of information to try to fit into 8 episodes, 3 seasons on Netflix, like a live action series. It's a lot. With all the extra episodes in the original series, we get, the pacing. So it's understandable that a lot of this would feel rushed because there is so much, but that's the price of wanting to make an animated series into a live action. That's just what comes with the territory. So that's just why, I get it, why so many things are missing. I just wish that they would have buckled down on the moments that they did show or like something to kind of make it feel not as rushed and a little bit more, I don't know, try to find a way to make the adaptation stand on its own, in a sense of like creating its own like little dynamic or thing. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of feels like they're just throwing in stuff from the original series, sorry, and throwing it in there and just trying to fit everything, like fit things in there rather than like being more intentional, if that makes sense. I don't really know if that makes sense, but they could be setting up future arcs that require early plot compression. This is just another theory. Maybe the creators are like planting little seeds here and there for a bigger payoff later. So what could feel rushed and disjointed in season 2 can actually be an intentional setup for events in the next season. So I don't know, somehow, maybe, I don't know, they only get 3 seasons, so I don't really know if I agree with this theory as much, even though it's like I can understand that if we're going to be getting like maybe more seasons. But even if they were just trying to kind of like just get some of the things out of the way to focus on maybe like a different like thing for the rest, it's just like, even if they were to do that, it's just kind of like, I don't know how they'll be able to do that in enough time in a way that feels like it would flow well. You know what I'm saying? So who knows? Maybe they are trying to do something a little different towards the end of the series. I don't know. But right now, I kind of doubt that. It seems like they're really trying to get everything kind of like in the show. But I don't know. Who knows? We might see that. They also could be changing character dynamics to appeal to modern audiences or exploring themes differently, which kind of seems to be somewhat of what they're doing as far as like the themes and stuff like that, as far as like just changing certain dynamics. For example, Suki has a mom now. Sokka's not as sexist anymore. Katara barely, like, not even really Katara. I don't know who she is. She's just a sweet girl is what she is. A non-scary Zuko. That's another thing. Zuko was kind of disappointing, very much so. Nothing was intimidating. I feel like the animated version of him was so much more intimidating than the live action. Live action just sounds like a crybaby. And sure, Zuko kind of came off like a crybaby too, like the first bit, but like he wasn't playing. This other Zuko just seems like, I don't know, he just doesn't do it for me. And I'm not the only one. I've talked to other friends and stuff like that who also have the same view. He just is like, he's you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really anything to, I don't know, because that sucks too, because Zuko is like one of the like favorite, like one of the characters that people love a lot. So just kind of like, you know, that the adaptation versions of him is just kind of like, it's not really too significant for me. Then there's also the risky move, which is that they could just be trying to play the long game as far as they want the visuals and the majority of like the plot points to hook the people in, and then they could dive into deeper character work later. Don't know how likely that is. It's a risky move, but it is possible. Judging based off of the season 2 teaser trailer, it just seems like I don't really see anything new in that per se. I think they're just still kind of recreating a lot of those moments from the original series. But we shall see. We'll see how this thing goes. I am a little bit concerned for Toph, just because I've seen how they've watered down the other female characters. And Toph, like I've mentioned many more times, like throughout like any video I've ever made talking about the characters or whatever, Toph is one of my favorite characters, and because she's such a strong character, I'm concerned. I've already like made a video on her. Apparently they do plan on making changes to her, and I'm not looking forward to that, because it's gonna be like all the girls pretty much being the same. You know what I mean? Like they're just kind of, there's nothing really to make them memorable or to really connect to. You know what I mean? Like Toph is so cool, Suki's so cool in her own right, Katara's so cool in her own right. But I just feel like the way that they're making them out to be an adaptation, they just all kind of seem the same, if that makes sense. Like they just don't have like their own thing. They're just kind of like not really memorable to me. And so I'm kind of scared as to how they're going to present Toph in this live action. So even though I was so excited to finally see her in this new season, it's just kind of like, it's a bittersweet thing. I want to get the Toph from there. At least like having like the feistiness, the energy that we got from the original series would be nice on some type of like level. You know, I don't want to get like a soft Toph. Like, come on. Nobody wants to see that. Just kidding. Unless you do. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like my thoughts on it. It's not meant to be like a negative video like I mentioned before. I am doing another video of like my concerns. Oh, actually, I'm actually already editing that video. But it's basically just talking about like my concerns for the future of Avatar, just like the franchise overall, because we're getting a lot of new stuff. Then there's gonna be like an Avatar movie with the Avatar gang as adults, you know, animation. So we have some things that are gonna be coming out, but you know, I'm concerned for the future of Avatar, and I want to talk about that and see other people's perspective and see what other people are saying. But it just so happened that boom, we get the trailer to the season 2 of the live action adaptation Avatar series. So that's that. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said before, or like I'll mention now, I think that it's not about the plot that made Avatar like what it is and made it so memorable. It's really the journey that matters. The journey is what really made Avatar what it is. It gave us the time to connect to the characters. It gave us the time to understand the world around it, and it really expanded it. I don't feel like we get that same expansion in the adaptation, or even the connection between the characters as much. And so I think that's probably why the excitement for the adaptation doesn't really stick, because we don't really have anything to look forward to other than seeing some of our favorite moments be in live action. Other than that, like, there's no reason to stick around and watch or be that invested in it, because we don't really have that connection to it. And I don't want people to think that, oh, it's not the original series. So it's like, no, it's not about that. It's about, even on its own, I feel like it really doesn't have anything that's keeping people wanting to come back for more. Like, I don't feel like this is a series that somebody will be like excited to go back and rewatch over and over again. Not that it really matters, but the point is that, like, what made Avatar, the heart of Avatar, which is like the depth and emotional like connection that the characters have, their growth as characters, is what made it what it is. And so without that in this adaptation, like, it means nothing. It's just a bunch of seas and a bunch of people that look familiar. We're familiar with the story, but we're not actually getting the heart and the emotion and the energy that matters, even if it means we're getting it in a different way because it's adaptation, so some things are different, right? So yeah, I mean, I also feel like they changed a lot of things that weren't necessarily necessary, like giving Suki a mom. Why? Making the mom like the leader on Kyoshi Island or whatever, like, I don't see why that was important to do. I just felt like that was kind of weird. And other things too that I just didn't understand the point. So if some of these changes that they're doing made sense, I feel like that's another reason for me to like it more. Is because, like, okay, I understand why they made that change. I like that. You know what I mean? Even with Sokka, I can understand why they went the route they went, as far as like kind of going into like him trying to deal with the trauma and wanting to make his dad proud. I get that. But it's also because we don't really get the depth with these characters. I really don't care. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I kind of thought about that arc before. That would be kind of interesting to explore. But actually seeing it, it's just kind of like, it's not giving what I would hope for, if that makes sense. Yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you excited about it? I'm still excited about it. I'm still going to watch it. I'm still going to, I enjoy watching. That's another thing too. I do enjoy watching the show. I just don't have that emotional connection or that investment or care that I would have, you know, for the original or even just any other show that I actually like. You know what I mean? Like Stranger Things. I guess I could watch Stranger Things over and over again. You know what I mean? It's that good. This particular live action show, I just don't have that same connection to it. But let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Fingers crossed.